In the long and complex history of early Islam, few transformations are as striking, as politically significant, and as deeply human as that of Abu Sufyan ibn Harb. A man who once stood as one of the strongest opponents of Islam would eventually become one of its supporters, not through sudden impulse, but through a gradual process shaped by power shifts, reflection, and undeniable reality. This is not merely a story of conversion. It is a story of pride, leadership, loss, calculation, and ultimately, acceptance of truth. The man who led the opposition. Before Islam rose in Mecca, Abu Sufyan was already a towering figure among Quraysh. He belonged to the powerful Banu Umayyah clan and was known for his intelligence, political awareness, and leadership skills. He was not impulsive, he was strategic. He understood trade, alliances, and the delicate balance of tribal power. When Prophet Muhammad began calling people to Islam, Abu Sufyan saw it not just as a religious challenge, but as a direct threat to the social, economic, and political structure of Mecca. The Kaaba, filled with idols, attracted pilgrims and sustained Quraysh's economy. Islam, with its call to monotheism, endangered that entire system. For Abu Sufyan, opposing Islam was not only ideological, it was a matter of preserving authority. Years of conflict and resistance. As Islam spread, Abu Sufyan became one of its most consistent opponents. He played a major role in organizing Quraysh resistance against the Muslims. His leadership was evident in major battles such as Battle of Uhud, Battle of the Trench. At Uhud, Quraysh sought revenge after their defeat at Badr. Abu Sufyan led the campaign with determination. Although Quraysh gained some tactical advantage, the battle did not eliminate Islam. Instead, it revealed something deeper: the Muslims were resilient. Years later, during the Battle of the Trench, Abu Sufyan again led a massive coalition to crush the Muslims in Medina. Yet, despite the scale of the alliance, the effort failed. The Muslims held their ground, and the coalition dissolved without achieving its objective. For Abu Sufyan, these were not just military setbacks. They were signs that something had changed. A shift in power. Over time, the balance of power in Arabia began to shift. Islam was no longer a small movement. It had become a structured community with strong iman and discipline. The turning point came with the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. At first glance, the treaty seemed to favor Quraysh. But Abu Sufyan, with his political insight, could sense something others did not fully grasp. Peace gave Islam space to grow. Within 2 years, Islam spread rapidly across Arabia. Tribes that once hesitated began to align with the Muslims. The power of Islam was no longer just spiritual, it was political and social. Abu Sufyan began to realize that the tide was turning. The breaking of the treaty. The fragile peace of Hudaybiyah was eventually broken when an ally of Quraysh attacked an ally of the Muslims. This incident set off a chain reaction that would lead to one of the most decisive moments in Islamic history. The Muslims began preparing for a march toward Mecca. Abu Sufyan understood the gravity of the situation. This was no longer about small battles. This was about the fate of Mecca itself. In an attempt to repair the situation, he traveled to Medina. But his efforts to renew the treaty failed. He returned to Mecca with a heavy heart, fully aware that a major confrontation was inevitable. The march toward Mecca. In the year 630 CE, the Prophet Muhammad set out toward Mecca with a massive force, an army unlike anything Quraysh had faced before. The Muslims approached Mecca with discipline and unity. Their strength was not just in numbers, but in purpose. As the army camped near Mecca, fires lit the desert night, creating a powerful visual symbol of their presence. It was here that Abu Sufyan would face the reality he had long resisted. A night of realization. Abu Sufyan went out to observe the Muslim camp. What he saw was not chaos, not tribal rivalry, but order, obedience, and unity. He encountered Al-Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib, who brought him into the presence of the Prophet Muhammad. For years, Abu Sufyan had opposed this man. He had led armies against him. He had invested his power and reputation in resisting his message. Now, he stood before him. What Abu Sufyan witnessed was not arrogance or revenge. It was calm authority and confidence. He was asked to reflect on the reality before him, the rise of Islam, the unity of its followers, and the collapse of opposition. At that moment, years of resistance began to break. The acceptance of Islam. Abu Sufyan accepted Islam not in a moment of weakness, but in a moment of clarity. He recognized that the message of Islam had prevailed not merely through, but through truth, consistency, and resilience. His acceptance was also practical. As a leader, he understood that the future belonged to this new order. But beyond politics, there was also an internal shift, a recognition that the message he had fought against was indeed the truth. The conquest of Mecca. The conquest of Mecca marked a defining moment in Islamic history. The Muslims entered Mecca peacefully. There was no widespread revenge, no destruction of the city. Instead, there was forgiveness. One of the most remarkable aspects of this event was the declaration that whoever entered the house of Abu Sufyan would be safe. This was not a small gesture. It was a public recognition of his status and a strategic move to ensure stability. For Abu Sufyan, this was another moment of reflection. The man he once opposed had shown mercy at the height of power. Life after acceptance. After accepting Islam, Abu Sufyan did not remain on the sidelines. He became part of the Muslim community and participated in later events. He witnessed the continued growth of Islam and the transformation of Arabia. The system he once defended had been replaced, but not with chaos, with order and justice. His journey from opposition to acceptance became an example of how even the strongest can give way to truth. A story of transformation. The story of Abu Sufyan is not a simple narrative of enemy becoming ally. It is a deeply layered transformation shaped by years of observation, political awareness, military realities, personal reflection. He was not a man easily convinced. That is what makes his acceptance so significant. It shows that Islam did not only appeal to the weak or marginalized. It also convinced the powerful, the strategic, and the deeply rooted leaders of society. Conclusion. The acceptance of Islam by Abu Sufyan ibn Harb stands as one of the most powerful examples of transformation in early Islamic history. It reminds us that truth does not always win instantly. Sometimes, it unfolds over years, through struggle, resistance, and eventual realization. From a leader who once stood firmly against Islam to a man who accepted its message, Abu Sufyan's journey reflects the broader story of Islam itself, a movement that overcame opposition not just through strength, but through persistence, clarity, and unwavering belief. His story remains a timeless lesson. Even the strongest resistance can eventually give way when faced with undeniable truth.